Hey Dreamers, Annalie here, and right now I'm going to share with you a few tips, tricks, and techniques on how to more skillfully communicate during a political argument. Because as we know, so much of that is going on right now, so much conflict, stress, division, and just fighting. So it's important that we practice reorienting our communication so that we can actually work towards solutions and greater understanding and more collaboration and peace for all these issues that we're facing. And this is meant to be politically neutral, so no matter what side of the fence you're on, you can practice these tips and tricks. And this also comes from my highly trained and skilled experience working in intense crisis intervention and trauma-informed care, where, you know, in group settings where the emotions were super strong, so much anger and crisis and arguments and mutiny and threats and assaults, and where, like, if we didn't manage these conflict and come to resolution and de-escalate, like, people's lives were at stake. So these tools that I'm about to teach aren't just like nice ways to like try communicating. They actually work when it matters most. So I'm excited to share this with you. So let's get right into it. Okay, first tip is to deeply listen to the other person. This is like our first failing point, right? Like, we have a hard time actually listening to the other person rather than just like charging our own thoughts the whole time, like just waiting to respond to like attack them or one up them or whatever. So your first point of communication here is to practice actually listening, going deeply into the present moment, the immediacy of the phenomena between you, person to person, and just closing your mouth, opening your nose to breathe, opening your eyes, opening your ears, opening your mind, opening your heart, and really listen to what they have to say. Like, understand and hear where they're coming from and all the points that they have to make, and find a way that actually feels authentic to you, and it takes practice. So stay patient with yourself as well, and just keep coming back to that intention of deeply actually listening to the other person. And with this listening to the other person also comes a second point, which is empathy, practicing active empathy. So while you're listening and you're tracking all of the content that they're sharing, try to listen for the deeper messages as well that touch more upon the humanity of what they're sharing between the two of you. Because oftentimes we dehumanize one another with all these political ideologies and all of these belief systems and all of these statistics and all of these points and all that, right? But as you're listening, also go deeper and empathize with more of their values or their intentions or the process of their experience that they're sharing in a way that, again, like, humanizes you with them. So, you know, they may be saying things that are really triggering for you, like, oh, I think all these cops are a bunch of pigs, or like, I'm so sick of all these ignorant lefty liberals, and right. So like, whatever they're saying, like, as you know, you're hearing that, try to listen a little deeper down. Like, maybe you're hearing a theme of, wow, like, violence really concerns them and they're worried about the welfare of their family, or they worry that violence will just escalate to more violence, right? So there's things that you can empathize that are a little deeper down beneath that political surface minutia. So listen for that and empathize with that as you're listening. And then third point here is to also listen to yourself. You're going to get triggered. You're going to get irritated. You're going to feel overwhelming sensation and emotion, right? And just hold that inside of yourself and like give space for it as you're listening to this other person. A lot's going to get evoked, and just notice it, witness it, track it. You don't have to manage it, and you don't have to react it, right? You don't have to like then all of a sudden interrupt them and then just feel so like hot and bothered, and then you're just going to be reacting right out of all your own stuff that's coming up. Rather, just listen to yourself, notice this like your own process that's going on for you as you're listening, and just be aware. That's going to give you more insight into your stuff and your issues and your beliefs and your hot spots, and that's all valid as you continue to seek and understand and explore and navigate life. So if this is difficult for you to just like be self-contained and listen to your own self during that experience, there's lots of mindfulness techniques and de-escalation techniques to help you self-regulate your nervous system and all that gonna take a long time to explain. I can explain them in another post, but know that they exist and just reach out if that's something that you need help with right now in the moment as well. Okay, let's see here. Fourth thing is, then once you're ready to respond, you're ready to speak, your points, after you've done all this listening and being empathetic, right? The first thing that's going to come out of your mouth is validation. Find a way to genuinely validate, speaking from that place of empathy, what this other person just shared. So those deeper messages, those intentions, their experience, right? Validate that, because, fact is we're all doing the best we can with what we know how, and we need to understand that and recognize its worth if we are to treat each other with respect and come to solutions together. And just think for yourself for a moment, how good it feels when someone sees you and acknowledges you and validates your experience, or validates what you went through, or validates your beliefs. It feels awesome. So practice that with someone else. And, by you practicing that for them, it gives them permission to then try that out with you. Then they'll be validating towards you and keep an open mind to hearing your experience. And this isn't a time for you to just superficially stack them up so you can just cut them down. You're just going to say all these validating points and you're just going to take them down, right? That's just going to piss them off, and that's also disingenuous. So don't do that. Rather we want you to I want you to speak from that place where you are genuinely able to empathize, and then validate that, reflect that back to them. Okay, next, after you validate, then go ahead, share your points, share your, concerns, give your speech, say what you need to say, that's important to you. And this isn't a time also to sound self-righteous or make yourself sound smarter or sound like you have the most trustworthy media source. That only just makes this go round and round and round, this vicious cycle, right? This is a time for you to role model vulnerability and role model that empathy. Because oftentimes we fight because we don't feel safe, right? Because we're not being heard, we're not being validated, and we're being disrespected or dehumanized. But we're listening, we're validating, we're humanizing, and then when we share our stuff, we're gonna invite that vulnerability back to them, which helps make this relationship in the container of this conversation that you're having feel safer. Both of you can trust one another more and build a stronger bond and work together, right? By you role modeling this vulnerability and sharing what's important to you with them. So yeah, speak from a place of care here, and not perpetuating all of that hate and all of those insults and stuff that we see all too often in this field. Next, after you validate them and share what's important to you, then ask them what they think. Find questions or ways to include them in the points that you just shared. Hey, when I said that, what do you think? Or hey, with this issue, what would you do? Or hey, what's your understanding of this? That just helps keep the communication channels open and helps it, convey the message that you believe in them. And it's really empowering for them to then participate back, where one thinks it's an us versus them, but rather then it becomes an us. We're both including one another in the process here to use our best wits and wisdom and understanding and see what's really going on here in a big picture from all these different angles. So ask them what they think. The next one here is to set boundaries. Don't be afraid to set boundaries. If someone is overtly insulting you, saying horrible, dehumanizing, egregious things, set that boundary right at the beginning, at that first statement. Don't let it go on any longer, because then that just gives them the idea that they can get away with more. That's ultimately just putting you more in harm's way and more in a relationship of abuse. If you're putting your best efforts forward of cultivated, mature empathy and communication skills, and they're just gonna come at you with such insults and disrespect, they don't deserve that mature communication and empathy, and you don't deserve that either. It's just you getting bruised and battered along the way, which is ultimately causing more harm. And we should really have a zero tolerance for language like that in these conversations. And I think it's really empowering when this is person to person, right? Because if someone's coming at me and I hold a boundary and I say, no, I will not be talked to like that. Sorry, you can either respect me and I'll include you in this, but if you're not, then I'm you don't get to be a part of this with me. When you do that person to person, it's really tangible and visceral, this powerful ripple effect to feel one person containing themselves and not putting up with that behavior. It's incredible to be a part of. Like, the energy in the room just like changes and people respond radically to that. So definitely practice that person to person. And even if you don't think you can, like, it's scary, yeah, but definitely you got to do it and nip it in the bud. And if you have to do this online, definitely do it online however you need to, like unfriending, letting them know that that's not okay, or blocking or whatever. Keep yourself safe and set those boundaries. Okay, next point is to know your anger and own your anger. So anger is super valid and important for these conversations because it shows us the way to, the areas that have been traumatized or where there's immense wounds and hurt, right? Like, anger can be the voice of that. And anger can be really constructive, even though anger at times is destructive. It's like taking down old systems and old patterns and like improper ways of being, right? Anger can be really productive, even if it's destructive. Anger is super valuable is basically what I'm trying to say, but just check yourself. Like, are you projecting your anger into the space and like expecting people to manage it? Is the container even safe? Are these people able to hold your anger? Because if they're not, and if it's not a safe space, and if they don't know how to handle it, it's just causing you more harm, and your emotions deserve to be honored, like in a safer space and in a better way. So just know your limits here and what feels like appropriate anger or not, and know when it feels constructive and not. And then also know that it's yours. A lot of people may not be having the same experience as you, so a lot of times we don't know how to contain it for ourselves because it's really strong and powerful and uncomfortable. So we like put it out into the scene or put it onto these issues expecting other people to take care of it, and it doesn't go anywhere because really that's our own experience and our own anger, and we need to be able to hold that ourselves first and foremost before we can do this as a collective. So know your anger and own your anger. Okay, the next one is be okay with disagreeing. This is also super hard to do because like conflict, when we're at a disagreement with one another, can again lead to this sense of feeling unsafe. But practice holding that tension inside yourself where like it's okay that we disagree. Like, for example, like, hey uncle, thanks for taking this time to talk with me. I know we're still seeing things at different vantage points right now, but I really value our ability to have this conversation, and I learned a lot from you, and I hope that we learned something about each other in this process together, and I look forward to more conversations in the future. Because ultimately, like, we're all at different points of our own process, our own journey of like evolving and learning and awakening, right? It's not like an on and off switch where we're just right or we're wrong, right? Or we're woke or we're not. This is a process. So really finding a way to say like, it's okay that we don't agree right now. Not that bratty way, like agree to disagree, right? Like that's just inflammatory. Find a way for it to be okay and let the other person know, like if at the end of the conversation, both of you don't agree yet. And it's okay. There's more work to do in another conversation, another day to keep working at it. And the last point I'll say is quality over quantity. So we don't want burnout. We don't want a bunch of impulsive, sloppy, like half-assed attempts at like going and having these conversations, right? We're all trying to get our voice out right now, but practice quality over quantity so that when too much is too much, and when you're overextending yourself, and when you're not able to keep all of these above mentioned points intact, right? Like the empathy, the validation, the deep listening, the speaking from a place of care. Like if you're so off your balance or dysregulated and you're just still going out and having these conversations, like you're just going to do more harm than good. So take a break, come back, repair, reheal, recalibrate, refresh, and then go in and do your best work when you feel like you're really able to. Ultimately, that's more productive and best for your own health and your needs, because these are deeply traumatic times. So it's important you take care. Okay, so that's it for now. So much more to be said, and try to fit a lot there in 15 minutes. I hope this helps, and please let me know how your practice goes with these tools. Let me know your experiences, leave any comments, questions, and also share with family and friends. Like the more people we have practicing these healthier communication styles, the more able we are to come to conflict resolution and this better vision that we have for our world that we so desperately need. So yeah, pass this along. I hope this helps. Take care.